I didn't tape everything from the last meeting, and this was something that Seb and Arthur Kovich got on me at the in the hallway when they got me as I was walking back. They said that no, it wasn't Arthur Kovich who turned off the sound, the recording when I was up there. It was me. I messed up, and I did. I probably did. I was thrown off because usually I don't want to be first, because I want to get the frame on the speakers, then I want to go up later. But in this case, Bruce told me to go first, and I didn't get the recording. But that's another story. But I did go on for about 10 minutes about Bauchuker, big Democrat contributors. But luckily, I got to do it again, this time with Ed Kaloji, another one. And this is what I brought up to them. Was on the petty lawsuits, and I agree too. But there's another issue regarding those. 587, Kaloji getting $20,000. That case particularly, that's Gerald and Laura Hatton suing over some really puerile drawing that was slapped on a telephone pole. I know a couple of county employees, and I wouldn't put it past them to do the same kind of stuff. I mean, there are a lot of, and true, you have no control over who sues you, but you do have control over how you handle that lawsuit. And paying $20,000 for this kind of thing, that honestly, if you're a lawyer, if you pass the bar, you can handle this. So the county counsel's office has to have somebody. Plus, you might want to consider an abusive process on this, because this definitely shouldn't be costing $20,000. Plus the other ones, you can lump them all in. They shouldn't be costing. Now, why? Edward Kaloji. These are his contributions primarily to the Union County Democratic Committee. There are a few others: Scutari, Hillside Democratic, Sullivan, Kowalski, Mirabella. Now, I'm sure this is probably legal. He only gave like $1,500 his last time out to Union County Democratic. But again, it looks awful. I mean, you got this really petty lawsuit. And again, on this point, I was at a meeting today where this Catholic school was drowning. They were trying to cut actuarial fees, and they couldn't make their $50,000 contribution. Out there, it is really tough. I mean, really, really tough. And they don't have $20,000. Nobody has $20,000 to throw around on this Hatton lawsuit, which is a joke, literally a joke. Should never see this. I would even encourage a countersuit to have, because this was filed. And I believe whatever excuses the county council office should be able to handle this. This should not be on the agenda. So that was it. It's pretty obvious to me, but it wasn't obvious to the freeholders, or especially Chairman Mirabella, who responded in this manner.
As far as the lawsuits, I mean, I trust the county council to make those decisions on what stays in house and what gets attributed to outside counsel. So I don't know any other commentary is necessary on that. I'll call on the county council to make an additional comment on the attorney.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, just so it's clear in terms of the matters that are on the agenda, both in the Travisano matter, in the Hatton matter, the Dawkins matter, and the McGuire matter, there are in-house counsel involved in all that each and every one of those litigations. But there are multiple defendants in those cases. I've explained on a number of occasions that there are conflicts of interest issues. Those in-house attorneys can only represent a certain number of individuals who do not have conflicting interests. We assign those. In the case of the Dawkins matter, I believe that Mr. Albert from my office is representing 3 of the corrections officers. But there are at least 8 other defendants in that case. You cannot, one attorney cannot, under the rules of professional ethics, represent all those defendants when potential conflicts exist. So that's why we have outside counsel. Not in all cases. There are a couple very, very limited cases where we only have outside counsel. In most instances, that involves certain expertise, such as in the environmental case that recently came up, and we hired an outside counsel. But in each one of these cases, we do have in-house counsel participating in the litigation.
Thank you, Bob.
You're welcome.
Just on those in-house attorneys and outside attorneys, If county counsel Albert can represent 3 people, he can probably represent 11, especially these petty things. So and the conflict I just don't see. I think the money is much more important. And it's missing the entire point. I mean, you can get outside counsel, and you can get tons of qualified lawyers. Actually, probably 99% of the lawyers who pass the bar can do this Houghton thing, and do it quite professionally for a lot less. And in the real world, like this Catholic school I met with today, they'd be bowled over. And it's not outside the realm of possibility. They could have been hit with a similar type of lawsuit. Anybody could sue anybody for anything at any time, pretty much. But there's no way they would have, I mean, these guys can't make their $50,000 pension contribution. They're going to go out for $20,000 to defend this petty thing. I mean, granted, you know, if you put it out for real bid, you know, the lawyers bidding on it wouldn't have Cologis or Bauch's overhead, right? This stuff. But you would be able, you honestly can defend this in-house. I mean, there's no excuse for it. The conflict of interest just doesn't fly.
I will say that just because you don't like the explanation doesn't not mean that it's not true. And you heard the county counsel, and you know, I don't know where you got your legal degree or education to make those kind of statements that you are, you know, they all can be handled by one attorney, or they all can be handled in-house, and they all can be done much cheaper. I just don't know where you get that information. But you're entitled to your opinion, and I'll accept it for what it's worth. Anyone else?
So I'm not a lawyer. He's not a lawyer either. So both of us shouldn't be talking about this at all. I really don't understand what he was trying to say. I deal with lawyers, tons of lawyers, and nobody would ever bill $20,000 for this case, this Houghton, you know, and it really is a silly, silly case.
Did you read it? Did
Yes.
you read the complaint?
I read the complaint. Somebody stuck.
Because I respectfully disagree with that. It's not that somebody stuck something on a telephone call.
Yeah, go ahead.
And I read the complaint.
Yeah, attack me. I've been attacked by better.
I'm not attacking
COVID's
you.
in it.
I doubt that better.
COVID is not
Never by better.
Well, as far as
COVID
Never
is
by
good
better.
sister.
But I haven't really attacked you ever, though. That's what you think. Yeah, they both worked, and they're corrections officers, and they're both harassed. I think they're married by another corrections officer, and the county took improper action to protect them and discipline the offender. So you're talking about county corrections officers behaving badly, putting each other in danger, and the county not doing anything because the suit alleges is politics. They claim that the former county manager, George Devaney, had promoted the defendant shortly after he was disciplined for the incident. The defendant's brother is also said to be a delegate of the PBA, Local 199, which represents supervisors employed at the jail. And the complaint is a vice president of another PBA, which represents the rank and file. So there's a lot going on. It's not just about something being stuck on a pole. And allegedly, this obscene flyer, and it was pretty obscene, I mean, it's so juvenile. Can you imagine, can anyone imagine distributing an obscene flyer about a coworker and still having a job the next day?
Yeah, amazing.
Never mind being disciplined for 5 days, and they're saying he never.
Can you imagine being caught driving drunk in a county vehicle
and still
having a job the
and
next
still
day?
getting your county vehicle.
What are you looking
He's
for?
got the county manager has his county vehicle reinstated now that he's did his 6 months or whatever for his first time DUI. But this is county government, and this is where these frivolous lawsuits come from. So this person's given a 5-day suspension. However, he used his sick and personal days and didn't suffer any wage losses. And he was promoted shortly thereafter. So it's not just about somebody making a silly flyer and putting it on the wall. That in itself would be terms of termination, in my opinion. Any corporate job I ever held, I wouldn't expect to have a job the next day if I did that. And I can't imagine anyone getting away with that. In the corporate world, it's sexual harassment. It would definitely be a lawsuit. So it's not as frivolous as you made it out to be. I apologize, but it wasn't. I don't know if you read the complaints or the cross briefs, but I did.
Seeing the flyer. We could post the flyer.
Well, they took that flyer. That's another thing. They took that flyer and they left it where prisoners could find it, could come upon it. And then that prisoner, remember, remember the jail escape where that prisoner left a note for the jail guard, "Thank you for helping me," and the jail guard then went and killed himself. He committed suicide. Do you remember that?
Yeah.
I mean, we're not talking about John Berry going to his pension actuary job. I mean, it would be bad enough if that was the case, but you're adding the danger. This is a public safety personnel. They're dealing with life and death situations. They're supposed to have their backs. They're not supposed to be acting like this. And if they do act like that, then there should be management in control, taking action. Politics shouldn't be involved in it.
Zero
and that's what
tolerance.
that lawsuit is about. It's not a frivolous lawsuit.
Zero tolerance.
Zero tolerance, of course. Of course there should be zero tolerance. It's mind-boggling. So, and it's not just my opinion. That is in the lawsuit. I read the lawsuit. There's an excerpt from the lawsuit. I'm not making it up. It's not my conjecture. It's not my opinion.
All right, you're talking about all the lawsuits listed on the agenda at this point.
Well, I still think it's frivolous. But the point is, the Colosi
Yeah.
getting $20,000 to defend this, and up. This will probably go up and up. This could be a $100,000 lawsuit that Colosi comes out with.
Just fire the guy and save
Yeah.
$20,000.
Yeah, but this is the real world and how you handle lawsuits. This kind of thing, you look at the downside. What's the worst thing that could possibly, how much could this possibly cost you? And if it's $1,000, $2,000, you don't spend $20,000 on something like this. This is, as I went into here, I'm in the real world, and I went to this Catholic school, literally consulting with this Catholic school. This is mind-boggling. I mean, to them, to have somebody spend this much money, well, to get in a situation where they have to spend this,
That would never happen now.
this lawsuit would never happen in the private sector, because there's no need to repay campaign contributors.
No.
That's the
and if that
perversion of
happened,
government.
and if someone harassed you like that at work, the answer to that, to put an end to that lawsuit, is to take action against that person. That person is fired. We no longer works here.
Yeah. Well,
that's the action.
That's getting into the lawsuit itself. And
But when you protect the person that did this, allegedly did this, then it becomes a $100,000 lawsuit. Then the lawyers get involved. Then you do depositions. Then it becomes complicated.
Yeah.
That's not the way a professional would deal with this situation. It's juvenile.
Well, my point isn't the lawsuit. I mean, if it hadn't been this lawsuit, it'd be something else. They have to repay Colosi. They have to repay Bautzuker, because they have to repay Dakotas, because they're putting in all this money. So they pick any lawsuit. The lawsuit itself is a MacGuffin, as Art Hitchcock would say. Just an excuse. If they'd done this in-house, they would have done something else out of house that's equally silly. The trademark thing or something like this, that they were inflated. Colosi needs his money. So that's the point I was trying to make. I mean, the merits of
That point
the
is taken, yes. Who knows? I mean, but obviously they don't care about the lawsuits, or else they wouldn't find themselves in these situations. They don't mind lawsuits. They will fight them and fight them and fight them to the bitter end. They don't mind them. It's not a problem to them. They don't care about the public relations end of it.
Well, it's worse than not caring. It's actually wanting them out there, because that's the only way the
Causing
Dakotas
them.
were giving them
They're
$30,000.
causing lawsuits.
Talk about Barry and his in-house comment at the end. He actually answered.
Yeah, well, Barry said this here. And so there were, it's just a bizarre thing. He goes into this conflict of interest thing, but then he says Albert represents 3 people.
And there's 8 defendants total.
So does that mean...
They get Norm Albert and the other...
Yeah, Norm Albert.
The professionals.
Yeah. So why couldn't he represent more, is obvious. It's outsourcing legal work that is... And there have been other opinions from this council. I mean, I stopped short of asking that they really get someone who knows what they're doing. But the thing about the open space fund, that you have to bring it to approval. Burton, to voter approval. Burton Zinnemer saying you can use open space money for anything that's not even used. Actually saying that a seal can be trademarked. That's, you go to the copyright books, it's there. You don't have to be a lawyer. You go to, there are books that lawyers even consult. And no, it can't be trademarked. Government can't trademark a seal, but they just go out and say it because they want to do it. And
free money.
It's more, it's in-house, and they're in a bubble. I mean, if they got legal opinions that were good, they would save a ton of money.
But they don't. But I'm not saying they want to avoid these lawsuits. They obviously don't care about them. And they do like giving out money to their campaign contributors. Calling them frivolous, though, calling these county employee lawsuits frivolous, that I disagree with totally. I've never seen a frivolous county employee lawsuit. If you're a professional and you're in charge of X amount of people, and then all of a sudden the new boss comes along and doesn't like you, so he literally sticks you in a prison, in a windowless room, and gives you no work to do, that's torturous. And that wouldn't happen in the real world. But the real world wouldn't allow that to happen. Those management decisions wouldn't come down. You wouldn't have politics involved. You wouldn't have these situations arising. But to call the lawsuits frivolous, that the employees actually fight back this way, that is not frivolous.
Maybe you meant minor.
The defense is frivolous.
The defense is frivolous. They should never defend these lawsuits. First, they shouldn't happen, and when they do, they should behave in a professional manner to avoid the damages. This shouldn't be happening in a jail. And the prosecutor's office is the same thing. It's just another frivolous little political thing. The guy sent out an email and the prosecutor didn't like the email. They filed a motion that they have, I don't know the terminology for it, but because, and it states because some of the testimony or whatever is damaging to the prosecutor's office, it's embarrassing to the prosecutor's office, that they sealed it. The public can't know what was said. Okay? So, that's my point.
Yeah,
that's my point right
We've been
there.
saying things about the prosecutor's office.
Same thing with Bob Travisano. That's another employee lawsuit that was appropriated more money tonight. More money. The same thing. It was politics. He works for one county manager. The new county manager came in. He wanted to clear the books and put his own people in, and they went after this guy. They harassed him, and that's what his lawsuit's about. What do you know? You don't just like allow people to harass you like that. This is your career. It's your livelihood. You fight back. It's not frivolous. There's nothing frivolous about it. It's not, from the employee standpoint. From the management standpoint, yes, it's frivolous. It's criminal. It's too bad the taxpayers can't sue them over wasting this money and running our business this way. I mean, it's terrible. So.
Yeah, but that Travisano thing, just to put a figure on it, an extra $5,000 went to Bauk Schuker for a total of $150,000. Their end of the Travisano thing.
No, their end is about $300,000 now. The county's ends for Travisano is $250,000, $300,000. That's
multiple. Yeah, there's multiple.
There's more than one attorney involved in that.
Yeah, but Bauk Schuker got $150,000. Yeah, Travisano was a $400,000 one. But finishing up on lawsuits.
Petty.
Yeah, but here's finishing up. There was something that just kind of out of the blue about lawsuits. And regarding, Sullivan doesn't say the name, but this is Catherine Alexander, and this is what he had to say about that.
And for someone who's been around as long as I have, and talking about employee lawsuits, I hear this come up all the time. First off, I know I do, and I'm sure I share this with the rest of the board, have total faith in the county counsel's office, and those people that work there, that provide the service. And when the county counsel speaks and talks about conflicts or anything else like that, I don't think there's anyone out here who has no experience whatsoever as a legal expert. There would be no reason for us to cut them. And I believe we have that confidence. There was a case that was just resolved, and I know it was done by the county counsel's office, about a former employee who went to the DEP and sued us over some work that was going to be done in the Broadway River. And that lawsuit, or attempted lawsuit, was overturned and was all handled in-house. And they did an outstanding job. And that was by a former employee who just decided to sue. So when we talk about lawsuits, here's, again, an employee who I believe has a lawsuit already against us, and then instituted another lawsuit. When we were trying to resolve a situation in Cranford with stuff that was in the Broadway River from the way back in the hurricane, we were trying to do the right thing at Cranford's request, and here was a former employee trying to gum up the works and do that. So that lawsuit was thrown out. So kudos to the county counsel's office for getting that done.